September, and September is a very special month for us here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis because it is when we celebrate our independence, and so we're quite looking forward to that. I wish to say a special good evening to all the folks listening and viewing via Facebook or other social media outlets. It's a pleasure for me to be with you here this evening. Good evening to the good folks there in the diaspora, our friends and families, those tuned in from overseas. I say a special good evening to you. I trust you had a wonderful day today, and I wish you all the best for the start of this new week. I also wish to say a very special good evening to the good folks there in St. Thomas's Parish, my beloved constituency. I trust and hope that we all are doing well. I wish to say a special good evening to all teachers, principals, students, and all those who have returned to school today and those who are looking forward to return to school on Wednesday. I wish everyone all the best for the new school year. So we have a very exciting show planned this evening, but before we get into our show, I just wish to take care of a few housekeeping matters where, as usual, we wish to extend a happy birthday or happy anniversary greetings to all those who are celebrating a birthday or an anniversary today. We trust that you surely did enjoy your day, and we wish you a very wonderful good evening. I also wish to express same token and sentiments to those who may be celebrating a birthday for the rest of the week or even the month. I say happy birthday in advance to you. On that same note, I also wish to use this forum to express condolences to those families who may be mourning the loss of a loved one during this very difficult time. Our thoughts and prayers are with several families here on the island of Nevis. First off, I wish to say sincerest condolences to the Shiverton family, that is Mr. Strani Shiverton and his entire family, Ray, Sian, all of them, on the passing of their lovely mom. I think her name was Diana. So I say on behalf of myself and my family, I extend sincerest condolences. We go over to the wonderful village of Jessops, and I wish to express condolences on behalf of the entire constituency of St. Thomas's to Carney Sargent, the family of the late Carney Sargent. That's Miss Rose Sargent, as well as Carney Sargent Jr. and the entire family circle. We trust and hope that you may find comfort in the bosom of God during this difficult time. And of course, Mr. Bochum Roach there of Government Road, he is the dad of Miss Vanessa Paris and the granddad of my former student Miss Ashley Paris. We wish to extend sincerest condolences to the entire family circle, and certainly to Mr. Brian Powilla Brian Barrett, also known as Buju. I extend sincerest condolences to his entire family, all of his loved ones, his children, those who are really left to mourn his loss, and to the entire Nevision community. You know, Buju was a person who really impacted many of our lives, and he will truly be missed. And so we just want to, at this difficult time, just share our condolences and offer our support to the entire family. We are going to take a very short break, but we'll be back, and as soon as we come back, we are going to get right into the show. And so just bear with us. We are going to take a short break now. All right, and welcome back to the legendary show. For those of you who missed the introduction, I am your host, Cleone Stapleton Simmonds, and Legendary is the show that really promotes the vision of ordinary legends. So we have a wonderful show packed this evening. We are going to talk about several issues that has been plaguing us as a society. Perhaps the most important one is our economy, and we have to focus on our economic state. And really, we have to find ways of driving our small economy. Coming out of COVID, we had several factors, variables that really had a significant impact on our economic development here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so it's time for solutions, it's time for suggestions and recommendations, and that is really what this show is dedicated to this evening. Of course, it's a call-in show, so feel free to call in and express, your views, give your opinions. If you have a suggestion or a recommendation, I extend the invitation to you to share that with us. It's back to school time here as we're in the first week of September, and we noticed that there were some significant changes in the Department of Education as well as in our schools. And so I just want to take just a few minutes and say congratulations to all of those teachers who were promoted. Some were promoted to leadership in their various schools. We had the appointment of several principals and deputy principals. So I just want to take a moment just to offer congratulatory remarks to those persons. Starting with the Charlestown Secondary School, we saw that there was a change in the principal there, and we wish to extend our profound gratitude to Miss Jasmine Ward Doe. She's one of my former teachers. She taught me, I believe, some 28 years ago when I first entered first form. She was my agriculture teacher, and I think I remember her teaching me English literature at some point in time as well. And so we just want to say, on behalf of the entire Nivision community, we want to thank her for her years of dedicated service to the teaching profession, and also for really taking up the mantle of being the principal of the Charlestown Secondary School for at least, I believe she served for at least 1 year. And so we are indeed grateful for her contribution and the expertise that she would have offered during her tenure as principal. I also, in that same breath, extend congratulations to Miss Nicola Huggins Paris. She is now the newly appointed principal. I think she's acting principal of the Charlestown Secondary School, and so congratulations to her as well as to her deputy, who hails from the beautiful village of Banscott, Miss Diana Brown, and she's a good friend of mine. We are schoolmates. She's a year older than I am, and so we offer congratulations to them. And I just want to encourage everyone, all stakeholders, especially parents and students, to give them your support. Of course, we all can expect that there will be a learning curve, and so I believe that anything is possible and everything is possible once we are able to give people our full commitment and support. We go over to the St. Thomas's Primary School, and of course I wish to express our profound gratitude as a constituency and as area representative for that particular constituency to the former principal, teacher Norleen Smitten. She has been there for a number of years. She did a superb job, and so we want to just show our dedication and our appreciation and gratitude to her and thank her for her years of service to the school and in particular to the constituency. I know that she will be deeply missed by the staff and by parents and some of the students, but sometimes the time comes when you just have to move on. So we wish her wonderful retirement, and we just want to thank her. I express congratulations to Miss Jerose Walters. I call her Rosie. She's a past student of mine. I believe I taught her so many moons ago. I wish not to disclose, when she was a student at the Charleston Primary School, grade 5 student. And what I can tell you about Jerose from my personal experience is that she always had an interest in teaching. So it's not very surprising to me, and perhaps to those of you who know her well, for her to really be appointed to the position of principal. And as usual, like I said, it's always a learning curve, and so we wish on behalf of the school, the parents, the entire community, to give her all the support that she may need, you know, during this transitional phase that she perhaps may be going through. I wish to also extend congratulations to Miss Catherine Brooks of Cotton Ground. She is the newly appointed principal of the St. James's Primary School, and so congratulations to her. She's at a very young age. And you know, again, I ask the community, all of the parents, the students, to give her your utmost support, as well as to Miss Tricia Williams, also of Cotton Ground, who has been appointed as the deputy principal of the St. James's Primary School. So you know, there has been some changes. I think for the most part, the majority of the leadership persons holding leadership positions in our schools, that they are females. I don't know what message is being sent. I believe I heard the Honorable Premier stating that it is one of women empowerment, and whilst we welcome that and we do appreciate opportunities for women to really be given equal opportunities, or to be given that opportunity to lead and to demonstrate their ability to lead, we also want to ensure that at all material times in our society we create an atmosphere where there is equal gender balance. And so I note from pictures circulating on social media, I believe I saw a picture with all of the principals and deputy principals of all of the schools, and I note that we have two male principal and one male principal, and one deputy principal. That is Mr. Cleone David of the Gingerland Secondary School, or the Gingerland High School, as well as Mr. Adonis at the Charleston Primary School. So you know, we appreciate the investment in our young people, especially in our women, but we also want to ensure that we still at the same time and in the same breath ensure that we are able to create an atmosphere where there is equal opportunity, and there's also gender balance. We do not want to forget our males. We also need our males, especially in our schools, and so we want to see a little bit more diversification perhaps in that particular area. I forgot to mention one of the newly appointed principal, and that is Miss Jeffers, Christine Jeffers there. She's the newly appointed principal of the VOJN Primary School, and so we just want to offer congratulations to them. Let us as a community give them our support. I know, being a past teacher myself, it's not easy education, and I can't imagine now the challenges that our teachers face, especially in our secondary schools and even to some extent in our primary schools. And so it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it also takes a lot of motivation. And so I just want to encourage our entire community, our society, let us give these young teachers our fullest support. Okay, they will need it. Let us encourage our children to focus on their education, to focus on the objectives of the education, to ensure that we give them the necessary tools and the support so that they can go out to school and they can perform. At the same time, we also want to be mindful that we must encourage our children in particular as parents and stakeholders in the society and in education to be respectful and appreciative of their teachers and the educators, because it's not easy. But I believe if a holistic approach is taken, then I believe we will produce better students, and in turn and by extension it will enable us to build a better society. So it really starts in the school. So now I'm going to get into this evening topic, and we're speaking about small businesses. Okay, we're looking at means of diversifying our economy, and I believe the time has come for us to now be a little bit more purposeful and focus driven when we talk about small businesses and, you know, economic development. For far too long we have left, and I believe that just from my experience in the parliament last week, I think I raised the issue, or it was more so in the context of a recommendation where I stated to the government side that there is a need now for us to take a deliberate approach to really looking at diversifying our economy to small businesses. I was not too pleased with the response from the member for number 2, and that is the Honorable Premier of Nevis, perhaps when he stated that, you know, it's not the responsibility of government to ensure that businesses are successful. I tend to disagree with that approach. I do believe that whilst it is not the responsibility solely of government to ensure that small businesses are successful or at least survive, I believe that it is the responsibility for the government to create an environment and an atmosphere where small businesses can thrive, where they can survive, where they can grow. And there are many ways of doing that. There are many countries that has invested and taken what I call a deliberate approach to ensuring that there is economic diversification within their small scale economies through small businesses, the development of small businesses. So I think it is important, it is essential, it is crucial. Now I'm not making the point, and I do not want people to get confused. I am not saying that this has not been done or it is not presently being done. The point that I am making is that there must be a more deliberate, and the key word there is really deliberate, because we want some intention. Okay, there's nothing wrong with government collectively or cabinet as well as extending the invitation to other stakeholders to look at the economy, look at where there's a need. For example, I'll give you an example. We know that there are 2 elderly homes here on Nevis. Okay, we have the Flamboyant home, we also have the home there in Gingerland. I'm not too sure of the name, but I think everyone knows what I mean. And so there is a need, there is a market for elderly care, and we know that because a lot of time there are the applications to put elderly loved ones into a nursing home or elderly care home, whatever you may want to coin it, that sometimes the applications, not sometimes, all times, supersedes or exceeds the spaces available. So there is a market. Now, because we all know that, we all live here on Nevis, I believe if we the citizens know that, the government surely must know that. And so there's nothing wrong with the government taking a deliberate and purposeful approach and looking at local investors, having discussions, persons in the community. Nevis is a small place, so we believe may have the will and the financial means to invest in this particular area. There's nothing wrong with the government approaching local investors and saying, listen, we understand that there is this particular need. We, the government, cannot do it at this particular point, or we cannot do it alone. can you partner with us? Okay, so it is really being deliberate in that sense of creating a partnership between the public sector and the private sector, where the government can approach persons and said, listen, we have this market, we will be willing to support you, these are the incentives that we can give, this is the space or the environment that we can create in order to assist you in developing these small businesses. So that is what I'm talking about when I speak about being more aggressive and more deliberate and investing more in small businesses. Traditionally, small businesses, people enter businesses by their own voluntary means, and I'm just simply saying that whilst that is good and we want to encourage more of that, there is nothing really stopping us as people, there's nothing stopping the administration from being really deliberate in the approach in terms of driving small businesses. Because at the end of the day, when we speak about economic diversification, we have to come to terms with the fact that most of our economic sources, particularly tourism, the CBI, the financial services sector, these are markets that are really driven by external forces. For example, if we look at tourism, we are heavily dependent on tourists traveling from overseas, or all of our markets are really overseas markets. That is the focus, you know, the US traditionally, Canada, Europe, and so, you know, it's really dependent on external forces. But the same thing we can say about CBI. As we all know, these are vulnerable markets and industries, and they are not only geared towards diversification in our small society. These are markets that are highly competitive throughout the world. I mean, almost every country in the world participates in CBI, citizenship by investment, and so, you know, the competition is really, really stiff out there in the international market, and because of that, it makes the economy or the dependence on CBI very, very vulnerable. And so we have to be careful here in St. Christopher and Nevis, the way how we treat CBI, the way how we deal with it. To a great extent, you know, there are many variables and external factors that we have to be mindful of and that we are not in control of. For example, to bring the point a little bit home and to make it clearer for persons to understand, if one day all of the European countries decided that St. Christopher and Nevis will need visas in order to have entry to all of their ports, then you can see how that will certainly affect our CPI product, because no longer will the product be lucrative to those persons who are interested in having that visa access to European countries. And that is really what the CPI is really based on. And so the time has come for us now to say, okay, in addition to tourism, in addition to CBI, in addition to agriculture, in addition to our financial services and offshore sector, we have to find other means of economic diversification. And so the growth of our small business is one way that we can do that. I'm not saying that it is the only way. I am simply putting the point forward that it is one way. Now, I had a call from someone this evening, and they said to me, Cleone, I looked at your post and I realized that the discussion for this evening is really small business. However, I just want to ask, why is it that you are advising the government? And I had to smile and I chuckled for a bit, and I said, well, I do not think that I am really advising the government, and if I am, I can do so confidently, knowing that this particular government really does not listen. And you know, I have been making recommendations for this as far back as the inception of my political career, from since 2020, and to date we have not really seen that aggressive approach. And so, I can say it confidently that I do not think that they really listen to people, and certainly not somebody like me, because any type of dissenting or opposing view sometimes are just merely ignored. And so, I do believe that there's no monopoly on ideas, and we can all share ideas and give suggestions and recommendations. When we go look over the narrows to St. Kitts, we see that the Labour government there is really focusing on small business development. They have a number of initiatives that they have rolled out recently. For example, one being I believe it's a stimulus, and there's a grant available that the government is offering to a silent donor, and they are asking people to make applications if they have a small business opportunity and idea, something that they would definitely like to promote and to invest in and establish. That the government is creating that avenue, making it available to persons to really get interested by providing grants to them. And so these are the type of initiatives, these are the type of stimulus that we need right here on the shores of Nevis, in order to ensure that our small businesses can grow, that they can thrive, and that we create the opportunity for people to really invest in their country. And I believe that it can only help us. There are many advantages to this particular approach, because if people can be self-sustainable, and if they can be independent, then it really eases the burden from the government in order to be able to have to help people through charitable means in order to survive in this very tough economy. And it's a global economy. It's a recession. We are seeing some signs of economic growth and some increase in the GDP for several countries, but at the same time we must be mindful that things are still very, very tough. And so it doesn't hurt the government, and I believe that it is their responsibility, not their responsibility alone, but at the end of the day they have to create that type of environment that is needed, so that people can really survive and not be too dependent on government. Let us take, for example, I listened to the Premier's press conference, like most of you perhaps did, and one of the things that he mentioned is that the Inland Revenue Department at present is undertaking an audit of law firms, and I believe those involved realtors, those involved in real estate. And one of the objective of that audit is to ensure that people are paying their taxes, both VAT as well as UBT. And for those of you who don't know what UBT is, it is the unincorporated business tax. So those businesses that are not incorporated, where a business license issued, then every quarter they are required to pay UBT. And so the government is undertaking this study, in particular of law firms, to ensure that persons are in compliance with the tax legislation. Now, I do not know what really inspired this audit, but I believe it may be one of the reasons perhaps people are not paying their taxes, and I wish to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to ensure that they pay their taxes. But at the same time, there is a cause and effect problem that we have here in Nevis and perhaps in the Federation, where sometimes people want to be able to pay their taxes, and they are very willing, but sometimes you get resistance within the business sector, because when people pay their taxes, the government does not give an account as to how the revenue collected from taxes, how that is spent. And just like anything else, any other area in society, if people do not have confidence in what you're doing with their money, if you're not being accountable and transparent, and we can see this perhaps with the hospital, the implementation of the new wing at the Alexandra Hospital. I mean, to date there has been many debates about this, many reasons given, but at the end of the day, the project is now ongoing for almost a decade and it still has not been completed, and there has been significant wastage as it relates to that particular project. Now, in any society and in anything that you're doing where people find that there is wastage of their monies, then they are going to naturally be reluctant to comply with any tax laws or anything like that, because people feel, why should I give the government my hard-earned money? Why should I pay taxes if at the end of the day the government are just going to waste the money and not really reinvest the money in a meaningful way to ensure that the taxpayers can have a more comfortable life? And that is really the issue. Okay, there's just too many unfinished projects, too many wastage of resources, and a natural consequence of that surely is going to be people will be reluctant to pay taxes, and they are going to cut a lot of corners, because at the end of the day they will feel like their money, their contribution is not being valued. So that is something that the government really ought to look at. It's well and good to say that you're going to audit, you know, certain small businesses for tax purposes, but at the end of the day you have to be accountable to the people as to what you are doing with those monies, that revenue that you collect, and you cannot continue to waste it because it is a burden on the people. So we want to create an environment where small businesses can thrive, and people can pay their taxes. People are confident and they are willing and they are motivated to pay their taxes, because at the end of the day they know that that revenue is being put to good use and significant use, and there is not so much wastage in the economy. And that is how you really build an economy. You build confidence in an economy. You are able to diversify your economy. You're able to get more local investors, and the more local investors you get, the more people overseas, outside investors, international investors, they will invest if they see a strong economy. So you have to really start domestically. Once you build up your economy and people say, okay, there's a market here, we believe that this particular economy is stable, then people are going to want to invest more. And that is how you create independence. That is how you get your economy mobilized. That is how you increase revenue and profits, and it would have that trickle down effect of people confidently having confidence in the government and being more motivated to pay their taxes. Okay, so the model really is it's a model that has been used throughout the ages. It has been used in other developing countries, in developed countries. It has been used tremendously in Africa, but the time has come now for us to be here in Nevis a little bit more deliberate in our approach. Now I want to talk a little bit more about looking at certain areas in Nevis where there is a need or an opportunity for investment, that is local investment or perhaps international investment. Okay, so I mentioned one earlier in the show. I talk about the elderly home. Now let us look at the area of technology. I see no reason why we cannot have more digital opportunity for digital landscape here in Nevis. I mean, we are now into the entertainment sector, and I believe that if these are things that we certainly can provide, I believe that there's an opportunity and there's a market now for a private investor. It could be a combination of private investors in conjunction with partnership with the government to provide a technical school here on Nevis. It can be a technical private school where persons are given the opportunity to learn a skill, to be able to take advantage of technology and really to broaden their horizons. But we don't necessarily have to sit back and wait on government in order for government to provide us with that opportunity. I think that with a more deliberate approach, with a focus on the economy, where all stakeholders and with the government, of course, leading the charge, that we can look at areas where there is a need in this particular society, and the government can focus on targeting people, targeting local investors, regional investors, international investors, and even having a quasi partnership with people in order to diversify the economy. And so this is what we talk about when we are looking at this small business model, when we are looking at economic diversification through small businesses. Now, of course, I mentioned earlier that there is a need to create the environment, and so I want to speak a little bit about that as to what the government and other stakeholders, and I mentioned the government because really the buck really stops and starts with them, because that is why you elect a government. Okay, that is the responsibility of the government, to ensure that they can provide environment where people can improve their lives and people can be independent. So sometimes we may say, oh well, you can't depend on the government for everything, but that is part of the duty, that is a part of the role of the leader. The leader must be able to steer the ship in that particular direction. But first of all, you need a leader who understands and who is purpose driven, and a leader who also cares and who know that there is this particular need, the people need this, and they are able to deliver for the people. Not a leader who would be condescending and who would, make attempts to tell you everything that what the government is not responsible for. Okay, I was quite surprised by the Premier's presentation in the House the other day. Very, very much surprised by the fact that he stated that us politicians should encourage people to be realistic in their approach when they're thinking about setting up small businesses. I do not fully dispute what he said. I believe that all stakeholders, including politicians, play a role in encouraging people to develop small businesses, and also play a role in pointing out some advantages and disadvantages. But at the same time, that really ought not to be the approach that should be taken. We should not use opportunities as leaders and aspiring leaders to really demotivate people. It is important to encourage people. You have to uplift people. Okay, yes, I do agree that you have to be real, but you have to create that avenue, and I believe that is what the small enterprise development unit does. They provide opportunities for people to be educated when it comes to small businesses, and for people to develop business plans and to look at the strengths and the weaknesses as to what their business, perhaps their business model, can bring, and to help it to become realized. But at the end of the day, that responsibility really should be a collective responsibility. Okay, and the government has that overarching responsibility to provide that environment to ensure that small businesses can survive, that they can thrive, and that they can be deliberate in their approach in aggressively getting investors. Let us start locally. Let us start domestically. Let us start here on the shores of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let us look at areas that really there is a market, but perhaps persons have not really looked at it, or even if they have the idea already, let us help them be able to bring that idea, materialize that idea. And that is really the role of government. Okay, so it's not to take a condescending approach to say, oh, somebody called you as the premier of Nevis and they said, well, I went and bought a truck because I thought I would have gotten work from the government, and that did not materialize. I'm not saying that every single business would be successful. Of course, we all know, and those of us who and operate small businesses, we know that there are, you know, many variables, many factors, many challenges, but at the end of the day, the government has to create that environment. You have to invest in your people, provide stimulus packages, and if you are doing it, then there is room for more. Okay, it's not enough to say, well, we have done XYZ. You have to continue. It's a continuous effort, it's a continuous approach, because at the end of the day, we want to get Nevis to a point where we can really ensure that there is independent as well as interdependency, or a connection between small businesses. Okay, so it's really the approach of enabling that small businesses can support each other. That is what we really want to get at, creating that atmosphere and that environment where small businesses can help each other to grow and to develop through support. Okay, and so that really is the extent of the type of economic diversification that we want to see here on our shores in St. Kitts and Nevis. We need more opportunities for our young people. We need training opportunities. We need to create incentives, more incentives in addition to those that are already there. I think we can be more deliberate. Let us have target markets. Let's have a more deliberate approach in targeting people, identify where there is a need, and then getting someone, a group of investors. It can be individual persons, it can be a partnership between the private sector and the government to be able to fill those gaps. And I believe if we take that approach here on the shores of Nevis, that we will definitely see more life. We'll definitely create new revenue, because that is what is needed to drive the economy. We cannot continue to have an economy based on merely taxation. A lot of emphasis is placed on tax. I hear the Premier now talking about the focus should be on collecting more, increasing property tax. But at the end of the day, we have to find other means of collecting revenue and circulating new money into the economy. I believe that the market is there, but we just need to be able to come up with a strategic model, and that is why you need the intervention of the experts. Okay, we need economists to look at areas in the economy and say, okay, take this approach. We have healthcare, we have a market for this. We don't necessarily have to rely on the government to provide, or the hospital to provide a dialysis unit. How about we get a group of investors who can invest in a private hospital? Okay, this is the type of thinking that we need, the focused thinking, the strategic thinking that we need here on the shores of Nevis, in our small island. I believe that we can do it once we have the passion, once we have the drive, and once we care. Okay, you just have to identify and look at the business model, look at areas, form partnerships. We can form public sector partnerships that goes beyond our shores. We can look at forming partnership with countries in Africa and investors from Africa. I mean, these are things that can be done, and I'm just simply saying that it's not good enough to sit back and say, oh well, it's not the government's job to do that. Yes, it is. It is your job. It is your responsibility. It takes leadership. It takes creativity. It takes focus. It takes energy. It takes someone at the head who really cares about development in Nevis, and that is what we need. So I just want to appeal to those of you who are listening, those of you who are viewing on the social media outlets. Start thinking. Look at where areas that need a particular service here on the island of Nevis, and do not be afraid to take your idea to different stakeholders, to different investors. Do not be afraid to approach people, to form partnerships. That is how we grow an economy. Okay, the Chinese does it, the Indians does it, every other race, ethnicity, every other country, that is how they build their economies, by getting pool of investors. And that is what we really need. But the government must provide that environment and that avenue where people can say, okay, there's a market here, and I believe that if I put in some time, some effort, some finances, that I would be able to reap returns. I believe that the economy is stable, and also there is economic stability, there's political stability, and I believe that my business can grow and it can thrive. That is what is needed. So it is okay to say, well, we have this initiative and we have people involved in manufacturing, but the point that I am making is that we need to do more. More can be done. The market is there, it is ripe. We have to do more as a government, collectively as stakeholders, but we definitely need to look at this small business economy. In addition to that, I just wish to state that there is a lot of good that can come from economic diversification of small businesses. For example, you would realize that the government, and more so the federal government, because I'm not sure what is taking place here in Nevis. We have seen of recent times the federal government implementing a lot of social policies that would help to ease the burden of economic stress, and to really just improve and create a little level of comfort for the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And a lot of those initiatives, they are not being implemented here on the island of Nevis. I'm not sure what is the precise reason for that, because I was of the view that we were one federation, and if there is a national policy, then that that policy, that national policy, really ought to be beneficial to citizens of both St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm not sure what's happening, but we have seen a number of school initiatives where persons, the federal government has this policy where persons can take advantage of, I believe, $250 if you have students going to school of school age, I believe between the ages of 4 to 16. And so I did not see any aggressive marketing or even anything really in Nevis as it relates to this particular initiative. And there are a number of policies or different things, initiatives that the federal government have implemented that we are not seeing here on the island of Nevis. I'm not sure why there is a disconnect. I believe there is a disconnect. I could be wrong, but there is definitely a disconnect. I'm not sure what is the reason for that, but I just want to encourage our stakeholders to be able to let us sit down and rectify this problem, so that the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis as well, we can have mutual benefit. We can benefit from national policies. It is important, because if we can come together collectively as stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, I mean government, opposition, the private sector, just different people who have an interest in really seeing growth and development in St. Kitts and Nevis. We can come together and we can look at different models and, you know, see which one would really give us greater benefit. That is definitely what is needed. And one of the aim of this, I read a report, I believe it was a report from CARICOM from 2022. I don't quite remember the name of the report, but what that report indicated, and I do agree, is that if we can build an economy on small businesses, it has an advantage of the small businesses being able to give back more to the communities. So you would see an increase in charitable activities, and that is something that you definitely need, you know, to really drive your economy, because a lot of times the burden is on the government when it comes to social welfare programs. But if we have a strong economy where businesses are growing and developing and we have that interdependency, then those businesses, then if they're able to thrive and make profits, then they can certainly invest some of those profits into charitable causes, and then it takes that burden from the government. Just imagine, for example, let us extend our imagination to a space where instead of the government providing back to school initiatives of $250 for students of school age, just imagine how good it would have been if the private sector could have been the one taking up that initiative. Okay, but in order for the private sector to do that, in order for the small businesses to be able to give back in such a meaningful way, they must be able to sustain themselves and sustain themselves to the extent that they are profitable. And so that is what is needed. Once you create that atmosphere and that environment where businesses can survive and they can thrive and they can make profit, it increase your revenue base, because then people would be willing to pay taxes. So there wouldn't be a need even for audit. People are going to willingly come in and pay their taxes. You can then use the revenue generated from taxes to do more infrastructure development. Okay, fine. Maybe then finally we'll have the new wing of the hospital being completed. But that is the idea, that is the spirit, that is the model that really ought to be adopted. Now I'm just here making a recommendation, it's a suggestion. I'm not saying that it is the only way. I am just sharing with the general public my idea in terms of economic diversification. We have to build this orange economy. We have to focus on small businesses. It is something that is needed. So I'm looking at the time. We did not have any calls this evening. Hopefully as we continue the show, people will call in and participate, but I trust and hope that those of you out there, I'm unable to look at the comments on social media. I perhaps will do so later this evening, but if you agree with me, please feel free to share your idea. If there's a dissenting view, I welcome that as well. If you feel, well, okay, the government is doing enough and so there's no need for the government to take that approach, then surely I would love to hear from you, because at the end of the day, I believe all of us as citizens and residents of Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis, that we are definitely going to benefit. And so it's a discussion and a dialogue that can continue. I certainly hope that it would continue and it would extend to other forums. I hope from this particular show it would perhaps invoke an interest in other stakeholders and people to say, well, okay, maybe Cleone is on to something here. Maybe this is the approach, an approach that may prove to be feasible, and it is something that we can take on board. But at the end of the day, whatever is your response to this particular idea, recommendation, suggestion, whatever you want to call it, I believe the spirit behind it and the intention really is to ensure that we can build our economy through small businesses and we can empower our people to be independent and to be less self-reliant on government. But government has its role to play because it must, through whether it is through tax alleviation, whether it is through a reduction in VAT, whatever it can do to ease the burden, the government has a responsibility. Both the local government here in Nevis, the NIA, as well as the federal government or the national government, to ensure that they can create that atmosphere where people can have confidence in our economy. They have a responsibility to drive the economy, and I believe one way is doing so is to invest in our small businesses. Okay, so just a few updates. Whilst I have your attention, I wish to just inform everyone, and of course I wish to thank all the persons in the St. Thomas's constituency who continue to support me. The support has really been beyond my wildest imagination. I just want to say thank you for continue to put in your trust and confidence in me as your area representative. Of course, at the end of the day, my commitment and my dedication is to the people of Davis 5, and I will continue always to represent you in the best way I know how. I will continue to advocate for your interests, and that is something that you elected me to do, and I will continue to do so. I do not think that I need a political party behind me in order to enable me to do the job that the people elected me to do. So I will continue to advocate for you and provide the best representation that I can. I just want to state that we are in the process now of just remodeling or tweaking a bit the Lowland Community Foundation. For those of you who don't know what that is, it is a foundation that I started in 2020 as a campaign promise to the people of St. Thomas's. So I did implement or establish a foundation really with the objective of being able to provide an avenue to give support to the people of St. Thomas's. So we have revamped that, and we want to now extend our efforts to reach perhaps a wider audience and to take it to other parts of Nevis. And so we have now renamed the Lowland Community Foundation to the Lowland Community Development Foundation, and it is now a registered non-profit organization. And so I just want to thank all of the people behind that initiative who continue to support. I want to thank you so much, and we wish to just broaden our horizons. I wish to thank those persons, those of you overseas who contributed to our back to school drive. It has not really been implemented as yet, but that's something that we are going to roll out in the upcoming weeks. I take this opportunity, because I will not be back with you until the first Monday in next month, to extend happy independence to our beloved nation. This year we are celebrating our 40th independence, and so I want to encourage everyone to just participate in the activities. Let us be patriotic. Let us decorate and celebrate and do whatever you have to do in order to show a spirit of commitment and loyalty to your country. So I take this opportunity to wish everyone a very happy Independence 40, and I look forward to the celebrations. I just want to thank everyone who tuned in this evening. I want to thank you for your continued support, and I trust and hope that this program, the hour that I spent with you, it was both informative and beneficial, and it would somehow motivate you in order to be more patriotic and to really invest more in the development of your country. So we are now on the hour of 9 o'clock, and I want to thank you. Have a blessed evening and a blessed rest of the week. Thank you so much for tuning in.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.